Hello, adventurers. I am Dungeon Master Roy of Dark Alchemy. Tonight I'm joined with my forever DM Evanson.
How you doing?
My fellow Dark Alchemist, the Dead Professor.
Hello, everybody.
And Marcos from Enchanted Lore, who will be talking about the Untold Fate system.
Hello, everybody.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming on tonight, Marcos. You're running currently a Kickstarter. Let's put that banner up really quick. It's the Untold Fate system for D&D and Pathfinder. And that's available on Kickstarter under projects Enchanted Lore, Untold-Fate. But this is a D&D channel, so we'd like to start off with a Dungeons and Dragons story. So I did ask you to maybe think about one in an email. Do you have a story for us? It could be as a dungeon master or as a player that really sticks in your mind at some point in your life.
Yeah, so there was a couple that I wanted to kind of go with. So the memorable ones for me as like a player, and I know we're deviating a little bit with. Have you ever heard of BattleTech?
Yes, we have.
Yes, we have.
Okay. So early on in my D&D career and stuff, I got introduced to BattleTech. And so we wanted to take a break from D&D briefly. And that is where, got to be introduced to these big, awesome mechs. And I got to play a character known as Caesar. And so the story with him that just I found so fascinating was really kind of the lore of the whole world, being in the Stompy Mech, fighting all these things, these pirates, and then the ominous clans coming and stuff like that. And so like as a player, learning about the lore, it just kept me up at night, doing all this reading and stuff. And that also kind of reminded me a little bit of when I first got into D&D. Those old 3.5 books and stuff like that. I love the art, and I would just spend time just staring at the monster manual, reading all, the stuff about them and stuff like that. So it's just stuff like that I've enjoyed. Yeah, for as like kind of a memorable thing for like a GM. Well, so there was one time decided to kind of take the party, I got to play as the GM, and the players got to go and do this kind of epic adventure. So they were doing level 20 plus stuff. It was supposed to be just crazy mayhem and stuff like that. And, I'm sure you all know one of the big rules in D&D is don't split the party. And so with this sort of campaign, it kind of set up that, hey, because, you're so high and powerful, there's going to be bigger rewards, but bigger stakes at hand and stuff. And so one of them decided out of curiosity to, hey, I'm going to split from the party and go into this other room here. Sure enough, they got caught by surprise, and I basically described after they failed their perception check and everything, how they got latched on and attacked by a mind flayer, and then they died. And then, of course, the other guys end up coming back, finding his body and bringing him back. But that was something that, I thought was kind of memorable for me as a GM. Don't split the party.
So, at a low level, you say don't split the party, but you said these guys were high level. But the higher level you go on, there's always a bigger and better monster too.
Yes,
there's always somebody that that can beat you up.
It's always a bigger fish.
Exactly.
There's always a bigger fish. So we're going to talk about the Untold Fate system and the world of Alestria. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's take one step back. How long have you been playing D&D or role-playing games in general? And then also you have some co-creators, what's the time frame for this? And what made you decide to then, play God and create your own world?
Okay. So for me, I've been playing and doing D&D and other RPGs for almost 20 years. I've had a lot more hair back when I started, but yeah, like I said, back with 3.5, I saw, I heard about D&D and stuff like that. And that always piqued my interest. But it was when one day going to like Barnes and Nobles, and I saw, the book on the bookshelf, and it just caught my attention and stuff. And since then, I've been playing D&D and other related systems. And yeah, we went from D&D 3.5, did the Pathfinder 1E, tried a Pathfinder 2e, still do a little bit of 5e, and then try different things like online RPGs within like a guild and just all sorts of different ways to RP. So learned a lot, got to experience kind of different things and stuff. As for why we kind of decided to do this, it was kind of a thing that, so this was initially a campaign that, I wrote for our group and that we went through. And then it spanned over the course of several years that we got through it. I'm sure you guys know that one of the biggest challenges and enemies of the DM is scheduling. So that's one of the things that made it take so long. But the reason for this was the reception I got from this. They really enjoyed it. It was a very positive. I enjoyed creating the world and all the stories for it and stuff. And when I told people about it, of other people were interested in it. And then the fellow players even talked about the adventures still to this day. And so I was like, seeing, RP and how much I've enjoyed it and how much is such a big part of our lives, I was like, why don't we take this to the next step? Why don't we share this story with other people and then kind of guide them so that way they can experience this. They can then have their own adventures and memorable moments or build upon it and twist it to however way they want, because that is RP, creativity and just having fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. DM Evanson, what do you see the big difference between Pathfinder and D&D? Because Marcos is saying he's doing for both systems. Can you give us a brief rundown on your experience? Because you have played both, I believe.
Pathfinder's a lot more crunchier, a lot more numbers, a lot more customization in that regard, and a lot more abilities and effects in combat. So it's a little more strategic.
Pathfinder 1 was D&D 3.5, basically.
Yeah.
At the inception. I'm not all that familiar with Pathfinder 2 and how much changed, but I think they kind of kept the basis of it, so it's probably more closely related to 3.5 than it is to 5e.
Oh, yeah.
And Marcos, so you're making the Untold Fate on the Kickstarter. Why did you decide to do a book or a campaign book that'll work with both systems?
Yeah, it's because I have friends that play both. So, we've used exactly how you guys kind of point out, right? So 3.5 Pathfinder, it is more crunchy. It is more for those that really want to have this very customized specific character, so if I want to make this crazy paladin that, it smites with a bow, sort of thing, you can do that. But then I also have friends and stuff like that who played 5e who wanted more of a, simpler system that way they don't have to worry about all the crunchiness and all the numbers and stuff. And so that's why how I approach this is that way, here is this story, here's this world, you can use whatever system you want. And we put in there, what are kind of the related skills that you would see for whatever the system, what kind of monster would you pull from the monster manual that would fit in this sort of situation and stuff. And that way then it, once again, going to that thing of allow people flexibility in how they want to play with this.
Okay. So we're looking at the cover of the Untold Fate artwork that you sent us. We have, for our podcast listeners, we have the back of a young, beautiful lady, female angel, and it looks like she's facing in the sky a darker angel, devil, but all blacked out. And underneath is a world in flames and, swords and fighting.
Love the art.
Tell us a little bit about the artist's artwork and kind of the inspiration of the world. Is this an angel and devils type of world? Is it a world at war? What is Illustria about?
Yes. So thank you. The art was done by the artist Art of Sunny, very talented. And so the way that he was able to portray this for us is, exactly as you described, this is a world that is going to have war. You're going to have where there's going to be demons and all these things. How best to describe it? So at the very beginning, right? The very first adventure that you're going to begin is you start as a lowly soldier, this pawn in this army, right? You just recently, in the past few years, you've gone and they've conquered one of the other nations, and now you're in this basic training and you're looking northward and stuff like that, and you're preparing for potentially another war. It hasn't been declared yet, but you could just feel it in your bones that it's going to come. And so we picked that because we thought that would be a good way to kind of help set the mood and the setting for this world, that there is conflict, there is chaos, but it also makes it kind of easy for the GMs, instead of that sort of situation of like, okay, how do the characters know each other? Boom, here's the situation, because they're all together, doing their basic training, they're doing their drills, and in this sort of situation, and you have your options, but this is why you're all together and why you might know each other. And then what ends up happening is, well, a big event in which, stuff starts happening, bad guys start showing up, and the world is going to be forever changed. And there's a timeline on which the players and the GM has to kind of comply to meet it, or they get one of three endings. So you're either going to, if you succeed in your goals, you can have the good ending, you can have the medium ending, or if you just do your own thing and do poorly, you can have the bad ending. So
I guess getting a group together when you have a first new group of players, or the dungeon master of the group decides that, okay, we're all going to play, I'm going to run the game. The classic way is, hey, you meet in a tavern.
yes.
Yeah. That's one way. We played at Gen Con. We walked into a one shot, and the first one shot we walked into was you already know each other. You're in the woods. You're waiting. You're on a campfire. A giant squirrel comes in and says, "You shouldn't be in my woods." They start singing and shooting bows at you. So, all right, well, now we're into it, right? DM Evanson, do you have a favorite way to get the party together? If you're running a one shot or a background description, like, what do you feel is the best way to start? Low level, mid level? They know each other. They don't know each other.
It depends on what the players want. If usually you have a session 0 where you kind of have that feeling going into it. But I love if you're going to do a pre-written campaign or a one shot that they like, hey, you meet here. This is the theme. I like that you're already established soldiers, so going in, all right, we're soldiers, how to make a character accordingly, and it kind of sets the tone, so you're all on the same page already, so you don't even need to
be there.
Yeah,
in the military.
It makes a lot easier to start of just
and you can still have your character theme. You can be the reluctant soldier, you can be the soldier who's trying to make a buck while he's in the military and playing the roguish type, you can be the paladin, you can be the plain old grunt. You can still play all those roles. You're just trapped in kind of this, you're in the military now, kid.
Oh yes,
I like that.
Exactly. That was one of those things that we kind of described for like a roguish character, right? Like there could be different reasons why you're there. Exactly how you pointed out. Maybe you do it because it's your duty. Maybe because you need some money, or maybe because you had the choice of, hey, do you want to go to prison or do you want to go serve some time in the military? You're like, you know what? I think I want to go that way for a little bit.
Stripes all over again.
and I always explain to newer players, first thing, for the most part, we try to be heroes. Some campaigns might run villains or alternative characters, but hey, you should try to be a little heroic. Even if, maybe I'm not the best at that. I kind of get a little wacky or a little chaotic stupid. You try to be heroic. Second thing is, hey, you all want to play this game together. You kind of have to work together. So if one person you're not cooperating, it's like, we're just kind of doing trust that's completely crazy. We've had some campaigns go off the rails where it's like, well, we're leaving because you're going to get us all killed, just like in real life. So sometimes it can be a challenge. How do you handle as a DM? How do you handle characters who are, I don't know, maybe this is the first time playing and they kind of just like have these wacky ideas or they're doing crazy stuff? How do you work that?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends, right? So I think you hit a key thing there. It's kind of about the compatibility between the GM and the players, right? And setting that expectations. If I, as a GM, want to play a more serious setting, then I need to make sure I convey that to the players and that the players understand that and are in alignment with that, right? Because there's some people I've met, right? Like I tend to favor more where it's a little bit more serious, more grounded. Yes, there can be moments of, brevity and stuff like that, but it's more of a focus. Let's be heroes. Let's face the evil. Whereas I know there's other people that enjoy more of the, more of the casual, the funny, the lighthearted sort of things, and they have their place. And a prime example I could give of that, right, is one of the places that I got to RP with. They went and they played as they said it straight up. Hey, this is a vampire guild. You're going to be playing as a vampire or as a servant of a vampire, and there you will see, and there will be. This is a evil, guild and stuff like that.
Which could be fun. That could be perfectly fun.
Exactly. So don't go there and expect that, hey, I'm going to be, a paladin of light and stuff like that. You're not compatible. You're not going to work, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's also too that like the players need to convey what are they wanting, what are they looking for, and stuff like that. Like for another example, I'm a type of person. I like lore. I'm okay with combat, but I know there's other people that just. They're okay with the lore, but they want more of that, the combat, or they love puzzles. If there's puzzles, I'm like, it's all for you. It's not me. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That's a good point. So we'll go around. High magic, low magic, role play, and combat, miniatures, or theater of the mind. So, Dave, why don't we start with you? High magic or low magic? What do you like better?
Middle. A little bit of, yeah.
Mix. Good. How about miniatures versus theater of the mind?
I like miniatures.
Like the miniatures on the board,
yeah.
Right? And what was the last one I said? I didn't even know my own question. High magic, low magic, miniatures, not miniatures. Role play versus combat, right? So again, I think that's a middle of the road thing too, right, Dave? You like to mix it up.
Yeah, I like to mix it up. I do like the RP though.
Yeah, Professor.
I'm a high magic person. I grew up on all the high fantasy books, so that's more down my road. Forgotten Realms was one of the first campaign worlds that I ever really, really dove into, and that's probably as high magic as you get, I guess. Arch wizards on every corner, and then definitely miniatures. We've talked about that before. We did a couple games at Gen Con, and we were like, we're really spoiled. We like our miniatures and our terrain and our we want to see the tact. And maybe that's part of it, is that most of us have all played, tabletop war games. So maybe that's our little fix of miniatures and tactics and strategy on the board, but definitely miniatures. And roleplay and combat. I love both,
Mm-hmm. Marcos?
Yeah, so I got a question with regards to that. Since so with the miniatures, how do you guys feel about like virtual tabletops and minis on there and maps on there and stuff like that?
I like them. I think they have their place, especially with this day and age. It's really hard to get people together in one place, so it makes perfect sense. But even at the table, if you have a projector or a TV and you want to use that because you want to save some bucks on buying minis and you don't have time to paint everything in terrain, I get that. So there's ways to make it work both ways. So
and we've merged the two. So we have a projector as well, and sometimes we'll project the map and then put terrain and minis on it. So you can have a live action map with things moving on it, but then you have physical minis and terrain on top of that. So you can cross the line and be full TVTT, full mini, or the combination of the two.
And we just ran with a new group. I was dungeon mastering for a new group who hasn't played like in 15, 20 years. And the professor was kind of my co-DM. He does have a character in the campaign, but he projected a map and he managed to get the virtual tabletop map on his table. And he put the fog of war down for a castle. And this is the first time they've done a dungeon crawl, castle crawl. They went in and then, Scott, he was a player, but he wasn't speaking up because he was doing a map. He kind of knew where it went. So he let everybody else decide. And as he slowly pulled back the fog of war and to see the players like, oh, with this room, and they really were getting into like being in that castle, trying to explore it. And
I want to creep up and look around that corner and, see what I see.
Yeah, that is one thing that's really hard to do without virtual help. And I think that is one thing it nails 100% is the exploring the unknown, because you see a map in front of you, even if you have paper down covering some of the, that's even hard to pull off.
David, that's how it started. One person would be drawing the map as you went along, and then you try to compare it. You hold it up, and it's like off by like You're like, wait, which way is it? You know,
I've done that. Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah, we've all done that.
Yeah. So, Marcos, what's your feeling? Your personal feeling about high and low magic, and what is Untold Fate kind of world? High magic, low magic.
Yeah, so I've played both, high magic and low magic. I think they both have their place. I think I lean a little bit more. So it kind of depends, right? As a player, I've enjoyed both. As a GM, I kind of like lower magic a little bit more. And the reason why is it makes controlling and having, you don't have the power creep as much, right? So therefore, if you have in lower magic, if you come across this item and stuff like that, it's more valuable than it's like, oh, hey, here's another +1 sword, let's just go vendor it sort of thing, right?
Yeah. And everybody's flying, like all 6 players are flying, and everybody's throwing fireballs. It's like, oh, what do I do? I mean, it becomes a challenge as a dungeon master sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. It feels more special. And so, yeah, I kind of, I've played them both. I do like kind of the lower fantasy, and that's how this world is kind of structured. So it's not quite low fantasy, but it's a little kind of, I would say, like a tier up from that. So there are casters. They're viewed as rare. The players can be casters if they want. Just those that do are going to be viewed more favorably. They're going to be in higher demand because of that. So if you're in the military, you'll start off maybe as an officer or whatever. If you go to places, people are going to want you to do certain things. Magic items are kind of harder to get a hold of, other than maybe potions or low level scrolls. So anything that's higher level, it's going to be much harder to get a hold of. Maybe you have to go to a major city, but then it kind of ties into some of the key things that are then presented in the story, in which there are these powerful items that you can get and progress throughout the story that it's tied, which is optional for the players. They can choose to ignore it and go through their own separate way, or through the side quests and some of these things, they have the opportunity to get these really powerful items. So that's how we designed and kind of set up this world.
On your actual Kickstarter page, I believe I was reading that you have 100 side quests. Is that correct?
Yes.
So tell me about that. You just mentioned side quest. That's a lot of side quests. There's a lot of people with little exclamation points around over their head. What is that about? Tell me about the side quests.
Yeah. So the way we designed it, right, is so as you're going through the story, you're going to be traveling along and progressing through different areas. And you're going to be passing through several key nations and different opportunities. And so in doing so, depending on your paths and depending on the actions of what's happening in the world, there's going to be certain side quests that are available to you. For example, we create a section, which is the side quest for within the nation of Terrenial. And in there, that kind of has the flavor and the theme for things within that nation and stuff, and the events that are happening there. Now, if you go down to the elven lands of Arilica, it's going to have a very different feel of the type of side quests. They're more emotional. They're just a different feel than those. And then if you go to Lothania, it's more of a depressing sort of, side quest and stuff like that. And then you have where maybe you go because of choices where you're participating in a war. We have some side quests crafted for that. And so it's all these things that way they're optional, but it helps have where there's characters you can meet, friends, NPCs that you can help explore the world, create RP opportunities. So that way the characters and the players, it can then showcase different things and of the sorts, right?
Okay. So DM Evanson, he is doing custom kind of background. Not I won't say custom backgrounds, doing custom side quests or custom storylines for each of our characters. We give him a basic background, and he tries to develop over time. In my current campaign, I'm a wizard. I'm searching for certain spells in order to find out what happened to my family. We have another character, the professor's character, trying to find temples to this lost goddess and kind of bring that back. But DM Evanson, I believe, puts a lot of work into this. And Marcos, is this like these side quests kind of doing the work for the DM already and kind of making these separate background stories. They're in there, so as a new dungeon master, maybe you don't have to do as much, side quest background work. That's what it sounds like to me.
I mean, sort of, but not really. So these are going to be more flavored around the nations and key cities and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. So like we advise within the book for like as a GM, because we give you kind of like guidelines to kind of help the players be like, here are these set of questions that we recommend you ask, so that way the players can kind of help think about what kind of character they want to build and stuff. But we can't unfortunately predict what how
of course
create there, so we don't have it necessarily tied. Now, having said that,
you've given a lot of information for newer DMs in this book. It seems like they'll be able to,
yes,
like if you're a new DM, you're breaking it down, ask this, go here, kind of a little way to guide them.
Yes, very much so. And the reason why we did that, so it was inspired because a player of ours, she went and she ran a campaign module. It was one of the Lord of the Ring ones, and it was her first one. She actually kind of picked it up because the previous DM had to step away, and so she's like, sure, I'll run it. And so then she just kind of got overwhelmed with some of the stuff, and so I was like, okay, so for thinking of this as trying to set up this book to where we can help newer GMs and give things that, experienced GMs can still use, hey, I give you a summary here, use an experienced GM. If you don't need this, you just need this highlight, boom, done. If you want more details, read on. So
I like it. How many, we were taking a little bit of survey in our last interview about dungeon masters compared to players. So I think all the group is pretty lucky. I don't mind DMing. Dave is our forever DM. Dave, how long have you been DMing for? Or when did you pick up that mantle?
It's at least 15 years. So.
Okay. Professor, how long have you been DMing for? When's your first time you ran?
First time's 30 plus years ago. I mean, I ran 6-8 year campaigns. I ran the previous campaign before we started up with Dave, but we kind of swapped that one off.
Yeah.
30
Marcos,
years.
Marcos, how long you been DMing for?
Yeah, about 15 years on and off.
Okay. All right. So, do you feel that there are not a lot of DMs compared to players? Like, one DM for every 10 players. And how do you kind of encourage, people to pick up that mantle? Because it's a little bit of a challenge. It's some work. It's rewarding, but it's going to be work too.
Yes, I think being a GM is, there's a lot less GMs than there are players. It's kind of like in MMOs, right? There's a lot of DPS, but never enough tanks, right?
Yeah.
So I think the challenge, though, is probably getting the word out, is that a lot of people, some people are natural at being GMs and DMs, and others, they could do it if they just had a little bit of guidance, right? Like, it's like, hey, you don't have to know every rule. You can, as long as you know the basics, and if you're with a more experienced group, they're going to help you. You can give it a shot, right? But, just kind of ease your way into it. So that's,
yeah, I totally agree. And I think a well-written campaign helps make other DMs, because they're going to play it and they're going to want to run it for their friends. They're going to be like, wow, that was well written. I would like to see my friends, and they may pick up the mantle and continue it from there.
So Marcos, would you say that the campaign is linear in fashion to help a beginner DM, or is it open world? Like, I don't know, Curse of Strahd, to me, it would be a nightmare campaign for a beginner to run, just because the players can literally go anywhere. And it's not scaled. If they go to the wrong spot at level 2, well, they're dead. So would you say this is a little more linear and it kind of guides them to the right location, or would you say it's open world?
So it is linear in the main quests, but you have the options to go off the beaten path and do other things. But we try to provide the tools and guidance to the GM to where then you can bring them back to the main campaign if you need to.
Yeah. So it's like an overarching story going on and some side things you could do or fit in to fill the gaps and stuff. That's cool.
And in your actual Kickstarter, you mentioned 100 side quests, and then also 3 for this particular campaign, 3 or maybe more, 3 specific endings. Did you have 3 endings in mind that it can kind of lead to? So can you tell me a little about that without giving anything away? Do you want that to be a surprise? Kind of explain what's your thought process behind that.
Yeah, so it was kind of that the thing where the actions, your actions, your RP actions have RP consequences, right? So the things that you do actually matter, and so yes, like I mentioned, there's 3 endings. There's the bad ending, there's the good ending, and there's the middle of the road ending, right? And so it kind of there are key moments and key quests that you guys can go through, and that's going to be tabulated at the end. That kind of then we guide and say, hey, if they did these things, this is the ending we recommend. Obviously, as a GM, you have the power to choose whatever you feel is appropriate for your players and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of how we kind of guide them. Be like, okay, if you do these things and these side quests, it makes sense because then you're this powerful. If you did these certain things, that's kind of going down the bad path. So
I like that, especially for a newer game master, new dungeon master. We played at Gen Con where we jumped into a table, which it was the 4th round or the 4th adventure in the story, and there was multiple tables playing at the same time. I think 6, and every table got a certain amount of points. And then at the end of each round, about an hour, said, okay, stop. You completed these quests. Okay, among all the tables, you got 7 points. Okay, you got to here. So the next part is, this many monsters got through, or this part of the city's burning. It was kind of cool just to have I don't want to say arbitrary, but a little bit of a guideline of, this happens, you got to a certain level, then this is kind of the results of it. And it's always different every time we play it. Then maybe somebody blows out of the water, I did it amazing, or they're really struggling uphill. If you would have played a campaign or run it a second time, you could have different endings and different pathways.
I love the God.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's kind of the thing that if from our experience too, is that it's kind of interesting, even though we know the story and we've played it and play tested it and stuff, is that the choices of the players differ. Right. And it's like little things along the way. It's like, oh, hey, this group, the original group, decided to go and take this path and experience all this thing. But this other group said, nah, that wasn't worth the risk. We're just going to go over here. And so therefore they experience a whole different aspect of that. So I kind of have a question for you guys. What's kind of your favorite campaign, that you guys have come across that was pre-made?
Dave Everson, you want to start us off? As a dungeon master running one?
That'd be great now. Curse of Strahd is just my favorite. Just one of my favorites. It's well written. Other than that, as a smaller campaign would be Cult Against the Reptile God, which is one of the first edition modules. But yeah, there's a bunch of one shots that are fantastic, but longer campaigns. Be Curse of Strahd.
Professor?
I'm a big fan of G123 followed by the Drow series. It literally takes you from level 5, I guess, to level 15 or so by the time you get to the Demon Web Pits. It's probably one of the most epic spanning campaigns from the original Advanced D&D. You got Hill Giants, Frost Giants, Fire Giants, and then Drow, Koto, Demon Web Pits, and everything. So.
Yeah. I played, going back to Advanced D&D, the older books. I forget the name of the series. It was there was a Pharaoh and the Oasis. I played that, and I remember being on a boat. It was like an ice skate boat, and went across a glass lake and stuff, and it was like the Pharaoh. Super cool. I really enjoyed playing that. And then recently, in the past couple of years, I ran out of the abyss, where the professor started it, and I kind of jumped in as a dungeon master. Accidentally took it over too much. I stuck the people in the Underdark for way too long, for years, right? And Scott never got the DM of that. I finished that up, but I really enjoyed running that. That was just a good quality book. I thought the monsters were cool, and the Underdark was cool, and they had a lot of talk about lore. They had a lot of Underdark lore, where it was this is the fungus. They use zirk wood. They don't use regular wood. This fungus is edible. This fungus explodes. And there was a big, I want to say, an under society where, it was spread out enough that, these guys were at war, but it was hard to get to each other. So, nobody really got wiped out. You really had to travel underground, and the whole underground travel was a really cool thing. Curse of Strahd was great too. That it felt like a 1 year one shot.
Yeah.
That was good. So that brings me to one of my favorite questions, Marcos. Why do you think that in-person Dungeons and Dragons, where you sit around a table together, hopefully, I like the virtual too, but sitting around a table together with other people, telling stories and playing games is important now in our modern society, considering we have all these electronics and all this phone and all this isolation from being apart? Because I think it's a very important issue.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think, at least here in the United States, we're very task-based, very logical, just kind of, got to get all these things done. And we're being pulled in 10 different directions and stuff. And so with D&D, where we can sit down at a table all together, we can take a breath, even if it's for a couple hours, and hang out with each other and have creativity and get to, experience that closeness, this friendship and stuff. Like, I'll give you a personal example, right?
Cool.
So I actually play with two different groups. One, we meet in person once a month for an ongoing, game and stuff like that. And the others, we meet every Saturday virtually and stuff. And both have their benefits and stuff. But the thing about these is that if it wasn't for these, I would not be as closely connected to the individuals, knowing what's going on in their day-to-day lives, and just have this, this bond with them, than if it was just me doing my own thing and sending the occasional text once a year, be like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I we've talked about this before. I think you talk about that bond. You go on an adventure together. You experience a story together. A week after the story's over, that experience still lives in your mind, just as the experience of going on vacation with somebody or hanging out with somebody somewhere. Like, it's like you did that together, you adventured together, you fought that demon together, and you end up talking about it years later. Even, oh, you remember that time? Oh yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
How long did this campaign take to develop and get it to the point where it's ready to kickstart?
Yeah, there was some setbacks along the way. But it took us about 2-ish years, right? So because I had, my notes and all that stuff, so I had a rough draft, so I didn't have to build it from scratch and stuff. The challenges really was kind of learning the technologies and the processes along the way, right? So which tool is the right one? Okay, so we choose Affinity Publisher. Okay, how do you do this? I don't know. Let's go watch some video. Oh, I did that. Oh, hey, by the way, you did that wrong. So you need to go watch a different video for your use case and stuff like that.
Talk about the Kickstarter experience. Some people might want to kickstart their own games. How did you pick a publisher, or where you having your book created? Was that a challenge with everything going on? Some people print in China. There's a tariff situation. Do you print in the U.S.? Do you do an on-demand printing? Do you have to set that up before the Kickstarter, or just kind of going through that?
Yes. So we decided to do all the research ahead of time and the testing before we did the Kickstarter, because what we wanted to kind of approach was, because we're unknown, because we're small and stuff like that, we wanted to have, like, we are guaranteeing that you're going to have this product, instead of we promise this, a year or something down the road. Yeah. So it is, yes, the books will be printed here in the US. We did try a couple different publishers, and we end up landing with
Marcos,
Amazon.
You there for a second. We lost your signal for a second, so if you could start your explanation over. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. How far back do I got to go?
When you started answering the question, you went to a spinning circle.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, so I think so with the so all the reason why we did the Kickstarter, right, is we chose this time after we had tested and built out the book, because we want to make sure that people had the product in a quick and timely fashion when it was done. We were small, nobody knows us, so we didn't feel that was fair for people to try to put the trust in us to say, hey, wait 6 months or whatever to get the book. The book is printed in the United States, and that that presented its own challenges in trying to get the right publisher, because when you go down that path of publishers finding the right one, there are certain challenges, right? One is getting a hardcover. There's only certain people that can do that versus going with a paperback or whatever. A lot more people do that. We chose a hardcover because that's kind of the gold standard out there. And so that's what we wanted to follow. The other aspect is that with publishers, that's kind of going to be a challenge for some people out there when going down this path, is some of them are going to want where you commit to a certain volume, so you have to pre-purchase 100 books or whatever and stuff like that. And then after that, it kind of goes to print to demand and stuff like that. So we opted not to go that route because, once again, too much risk for us and stuff like that. I didn't want to get stuck with a whole bunch of books that, stuff. So we went with, so that kind of narrowed down the scope of who we could work with. And so the ones we could work with was kind of Lulu or Amazon. That way it was more, just print on demand and stuff like that. And that's also where you're going to find some additional challenges. So at least for us, when using Affinity Publisher and exporting and using to them, because each publisher has just a little bit different on how they want you to set up your stuff. So Lulu wants it done a certain way, Amazon wants it done this other way, and stuff like that. So you have to kind of basically either have two files or tweak them or whatever. So
and that could take hours of formatting too, to format those margins and just move tiny, move something a quarter inch. That could be, that could be a week's worth of work. Move it, right?
Fun.
Yeah. It's not the fun stuff. The fun stuff is creating.
Yeah.
Tweaking the quarter inch is not as fun. So the book is, how many pages I read? It was
249.
Yes.
249.
Yes.
Any new monsters? Any new classes in there? Did you reinvent the wheel? Anything we should be able to look out for?
So for this one, no, we decided not to go with any classes or monsters. We were originally going to go and create a whole bunch of monsters and stuff, but we decided we should keep it simple, encourage, to where people use the tools that you have, and so we would recommend, hey, this is the monster from, that you could find in the Pathfinder SRD or on D&D online and stuff, to kind of be like, to kind of help the DMs use the tools you already have access to and stuff. Now, going forward for some of the future stuff, the next one, we do anticipate we're going to create some additional fun mechanics and stuff, where we did have some creativity to where we created our own stuff, is going to be some of the magical items, right? We had some fun with that, say, okay, here's this item, this is what you have to do to progress this, or you got this, and here's the abilities it gives you. So that's where we kind of went, creative with the items.
Yeah, I got you. And with having 100 side quests, do you think it's possible that a DM could, have your book and pull one of those out and just kind of make a little one shot, or, oh, you know what? I don't need a side quest for your world, but hey, there's a whole series of military side quests here. Let me pull these out and I'll just plug them into my world, and it's an easy fix.
Yes, that's what I hope, is that, other people can use this, so yes, that's the thing that I also love about D&D and the creativity, is the freedom with it, right? So get inspired. You can use this as is, follow the campaign and stuff. If not, browse it, draw inspiration, get motivated, and say, yes, here is how this side quest handles this combat, this, Civil War situation or whatever, draw inspiration from that.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of the things I love about doing these interviews, is getting inspiration, hearing about new mechanics, new side quests, borrowing from this book, from that book, and just running great games. It's good stuff.
Yeah, DM Evanson last night, he borrowed from a book he recently picked up, and it ended up with a noble with his head ripped off without a brain on the floor inside that magic hat, and we were quite horrified.
Oh my!
Where did you borrow that from, dude?
Grim Hollow.
Oh, okay.
The monster
Is that
manual.
one of the creatures in there?
They have a death cap. It's a cap that like possesses you when you put it on your head.
And we got it off, but it took the guy's brain with it. We're like, what do we do now? We had problems. That was a good time. Yeah, it's always a good story. So Marcos, any advice for a new game master jumping into either your world or just in general? If somebody says, I don't know if I want to try being a dungeon master, and same question for Professor and DM Evanson.
Yeah. So the advice I would say is take it one day at a time. You don't have to, you're not Matt Mercer, you're not Critical Role. You're here to have fun, and so are the players, right? So do with what you can handle. If you're newer, start with maybe like a campaign module, a one shot. You don't have to create your own world. When you become more comfortable and you want to scale up to something like that, by all means. But, just start simple. People are forgiving. People just want to have fun.
Sounds good. DM Evanson?
I say I agree with him 100%. Either that or go back to first ed and read every book they ever wrote, and then you'll be ready. But no, just do it. Just get out there and hurt your friends. Tell a great story.
Professor?
I got a really controversial tip. Read the Dungeon Master's Guide. There is a bevy of information in there that most people never touch. Mm-hmm. There are systems in the DM's guide that people are like, I wish there was a system for this. I was like, it's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Have you ever read it? There are really there's a ton of resources in that book, but very few people are going to sit down and read it from cover to cover.
Yeah. I enjoy the mob system, so I threw like 15, 20 zombies at the characters. You don't want to roll 20 dice, but if you actually look up an armor class and there's 12 zombies, there's actually 2 of them hit. They didn't roll, they just hit. No crits. You take 8 points damage. Why? Well, there's 12 of them, and 2 got, and then you attack back, you wipe out. Oh, now they're down to 6. 1 hit, down to 4, none hit. Now I have to stop breaking down and rolling. Yep. So you can actually do mobs, and that's actually in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I think that's one of my favorite rules is the mob rule, because I like hordes of stuff.
I've talked about it before. I love the minion rule from 4th edition. I think it's the only thing I like from 4th edition. Yeah, there's 20 goblins. One has stats, and everyone else has 1 hit point.
Yep. Yeah, and that makes the players feel heroic when they kill 3 or 4 goblins in a row. They feel like there's cutting through them and stuff. I guess my pro tip would be run a one shot. There's so many one shots out there, or pick up Marcos's campaign book and pick a side quest out of there and run it as a one shot, and just see how it goes and get some feedback and
friends and dive in.
Practice that way. So, any last questions, DM Evanson?
No, it looks like you got 23 days left on the Kickstarter, so best of luck. Hopefully you get a lot more to go, and thanks for coming on.
Yep, that's Untold Fate. That's the Marcos from the Enchanted Lore. You can find him on Instagram at Enchanted_Lore_. Links will be down below. This is a tabletop role-playing campaign compatible with D&D 5e, Pathfinder 1e, and 2e, and probably even BattleTech if you wanted to. You can probably squeeze that in there. You can find him on his on Kickstarter. The link is /projects, Enchanted Lore, one word, /Untold-Fate. That's Untold-Fate.
You just look up Enchanted Lore, it comes up nice and clean.
Okay, look up Enchanted Lore Kickstarter. You can find my fellow Dark Alchemist DM. Find me at Dark Alchemy Limited with Scott. Dungeon Master Evanson, DM_Evanson. That's EVENSEN. Adventurers Wanted. Please share and subscribe today. And Marcos, Professor, any parting questions for Marcos? Any parting words?
I think that was great. I wish you the best of luck on it. I'll probably pick up a copy myself.
Yeah,
we like.
I'm looking forward to reading it.
We like to write the hardcover books and have them on a big shelf. It's getting bigger and bigger. Marcos, any questions for us? Any parting comments, concerns, or sagely advice?
Yeah, I got two things. One is because you brought this up about the mobs. So, I'm sure with swarms and mobs, what was the scariest one you've ever come across?
Let me see. I'll start this one off. Actually, I'll give you a recent one. that DM Evanson threw at us. We go into this temple. We think it's a temple of Ioun, and Scott's character is kind of exploring it. And, there's a little bit of a puzzle aspect. And they go up on this altar, and Professor's character, Dora, has to kind of figure it out. And all of a sudden, swarms of spiders start coming, swarms of bugs. We'll fight them, and some big spiders are coming. And then all of a sudden, okay, yeah, we're doing good. And the professor's kind of figuring out the puzzle. And all of a sudden, more swarms. We fight them, and more swarms. And then I think at the third round, we're like, these swarms are never stopping until we figure out this other part. So, and all the miniatures were painted nicely. We had all the terrain out. And I think my little 38 hit point wizard, he got jumped on the back by a spider and just bit him in the back of the neck. And I went down. I think I dropped 3 times. And we have a house rule. If you drop to 0, or if you have to make a death save, and somebody gets you up with a spell, you have 1 level of exhaustion. This way, it's not like up, down, up, down, up, down. So by the third time I was up, I had 3 levels of exhaustion. And that also limits you to, being knocked to 0 6 times. At the 6th time, you're just dead. And it's a major thing. So I think most of our characters had 3 or 4 levels of exhaustion. It was truly horrifying with all the spiders. And Dave had a lot of miniatures.
Yes, he did.
What about you, Dave? What's your favorite one? It can't be the same one.
No, I'm trying to remember. There's been so many swarms. I think there was I did one a while back with Pathfinder, and it was a dungeon underground, and it was skeletons, and we're fighting them, and they're annoying as it is back then because I think only blunt weapons hurt them. Sure. And then a swarm of hands, just zombie hands, came after us, and that was weird. I was freaked.
That's kind of scary because you don't know what it is. Like
multiple grapples, and it was crazy.
Professor,
long ago, first level adventure. There's some noises in the basement of the tavern. Can you guys go check it out?
Yeah.
Go down to the basement. 3 or 4 rat swarms just slaughtering 4 first level characters, just dying to rat swarms. It's like the most horrifying thing you can imagine.
Yeah. Oh my god, it sounds
rat
like
swarms are one of my favorites to use.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, second question, Marcos.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a thing I wanted to share with you guys. So, I want to say thank you for letting us be part of this, and share this with you guys. We also want to share that this we appreciate all the support, and it's overwhelming. Just how this feels, and one of the things that next steps that we want to do is that. We have kind of a plan of things we want to do. So we want to release like once a year, kind of a short module, adventure thing, usually like a 1-shot or maybe like a couple sessions sort of thing, for free. We'll do that like once a year and then start working on the next big book. So there's still more fun stuff to come, basically.
Very cool.
Awesome.
The tales will continue, right? The Untold Fate and the world of Alestria is not stopping here. This is only the beginning.
Yes.
Well, when you're ready for that, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you on again and continue your adventures, hear about how the Kickstarter went, and hear about whatever people were involved in these adventures and how I was received. So that'd be awesome. So please follow Untold Fate and find them on Kickstarter. Also, Adventures Wanted, please subscribe today. Share this with anybody, and we're trying to grow our channel. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, so we appreciate Marcos if you share this with any of your friends. Just subscribe. I will send you copies of everything like we talked about. I'm going to end it here, so thank you everybody so much. If you just stay on for a minute in the green room, we'll have a little after chat and to get you sorted out, and we'll talk again soon. Good luck with your Kickstarter.
Yes,
thank you.
Good luck.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.